Hello, welcome to video 12, Power Excel Functions. This is going to be one of the most important video in this training. You will learn the few Excel formulas that make all the difference between struggling and thriving Excel-wise. I'll teach you how to use if function, sum function, count ifs, sum ifs, round and ceiling, and or concatenate, left, right, and mid, today, day and month, upper, lower and proper, round between and indirect, finally formula auditing or checking. So let's get started. If function lets you set what a particular cell should have depending on a condition you set. Let's take this for example. I have a business directory, list of companies, their country of incorporation. I can double click here to make that expand. It's too much, so I'll bring it back. And here I have foreign or local. To determine that, I've used an if function. And this is how it will work. It's going to check the country of incorporation. If it's Nigeria, it's going to put local. And if it's not Nigerian, it's going to put foreign. So how do you do that? It's very easy. If function is one of the simplest and most versatile Excel functions. You just type if. Now you enter the logical test you want to carry out. I want to check if what I have in country of incorporation is equal to Nigeria. When you are entering a text in Excel, you must put it in a double quotation mark. And then I'll put in a comma. So what should Excel do if that condition is met? If what is in the country of incorporation is Nigeria, I will want it to say this is a local company. So it will put local in this cell. Once again, I'll put it in double quotation since it's a text. Then comma. What if the condition was not met? What should be done? Here, I want it to indicate that it's a foreign company. I'll enter. So that's how it's done. Since it's the same formula I will do here, rather than typing it all over, I can simply drag it down and you can see it's done. Let's change one of these companies to a Nigerian company. Let's put a bank, GT Bank. Then I'll change country of incorporation to Nigeria. Once I press on enter, you will notice a change here. So I'm going to press enter right about now. Can you see? It's changed to local. So it's a very dynamic formula. It's whatever it's here, if I make an update here, the formula checks and makes sure that my condition here is reflecting whatever I've done here. And that's a very basic use of if. So let me show you another example of when you might practically need to use an if function. Here I have a sales report and then there's a condition for sales bonus. You must make more than 1 million naira to get a 5% sales bonus. So if you make less than 1 million naira, you're not going to get a 5% sales bonus. But once you make more than 1 million naira, you'll get that sales bonus. So that's what I did here. I used an if function to do the calculation. So I'm going to do it all over. Okay, if your sales made is more than 1 million naira, since I'm entering a number, I don't need to put in double quotation mark. 1 2 3 1 2 3. So once that condition is met, it's going to calculate, take 5% of whatever sales you've done and make it your sales bonus. So it's going to do times 0.05, that is 5%. But if that condition is not met, you're going to get 0 naira, no sales bonus. So once that condition is false, not met, you get 0 naira. That was how we got 0 for Peter Slow. I'm going to do the same formula here. To do that, I can simply drag it down, and you can see, yeah, Michael Olafusi, that's me. I did the highest. I did 5 million naira, so I was qualified to get 5% of my sales as sales bonus. And some other guy, he did 2 million naira, so he got 5% of 2 million naira as sales bonus. Remember, I can copy the formats here by clicking on Format Paint, and then I'll paste here. By clicking, all I did was click here to paste. So that was how I did that. Let's move on to sum. Here I have I'm sure you remember this record, a car dealership sales record for year 2010, year 2013. I have for January, for February, for March, for April till December 2013. Okay, so I will need to calculate the total of all the salesmen for each car brand. And to do that, I used the sum function. I'm going to do that here all over again. Equals to sum, that's how you start a formula. You start with equal to, then you put in the formula. And then to do that, I can select all the numbers I want to sum at once. So in this case, I want to sum everything from year to year. I close the bracket. Close the bracket, I do enter. I can do that all over here, or I can simply drag the formula I've entered here across the rows to this, and that is it. I've done the sum for January 2013. But Excel has a very simple tool for doing this automatically for you. I can click on this cell where I want to include the sum for all Ford sales across the salesmen. So all Ford sales across the salesmen, the total should be on the next empty cell. I can simply come here and click on auto sum to do that, and it will show me what it's going to do before committing the change. So it's once I'm okay, if I'm okay with what it has done, simply press enter. That is one way, and I can do that via a shortcut called, you press on Alt and then equal to. It's same as going to click on auto sum. Once again, it's Alt, you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and you press equal to, and you release both keys. So once I'm okay with that, I click on OK. Finally, I can drag to do for this. So I'm not going to bother doing for the rest of the months. I'm going to show you how to do a sum where you want to enter the sum. It's far away from the data you are using for the sum function. Unlike here, where what we are summing are immediately above the cell we want to put in the sum. So let's do sum of all sales for John Sparrow in February. So to do that, I'll once again equal to sum for John Sparrow in February. This is February, and these are John Sparrow sales. So I'm going to select these cells. These are the sales John Sparrow made in February. Once I'm okay with it, click on OK. I close the bracket and do enter. So if If I want to do for Jane Potter, I'll do same. Sum Jane Potter, close the bracket, enter. So that's how you enter sum for even when your data range where the values you want to sum are far away from the cell you want to put the sum in. We are putting the sum here. The values we are adding are really far away, they are here. So that's how you do sum. Next is count ifs and sum ifs. Once again, I have my popular pizza sales table, 5,000 entries. And here I want to create a sales report. I know these are the pizza types we have. So I want to do a calculation of all the sales, count of sales for each pizza type and sum of sales amounts for each pizza type. To do that, I'm going to use count if to do the count of pizza type. It's going to count how many chicken barley were sold, how many times chicken barley occurred in here, and to calculate the sum of sales amount, it's going to sum the sales amount for all chicken barley entries in here. So how do I enter that? Click on equals to enter a command, and then count ifs. Yes, asking for the criteria range. The criteria range is here in my pizza sold column. I can select the entire column by clicking on this column header, which is B. So if I click on this, select the entire column, then I would say the criteria. The criteria is count only the chicken barley that occurred in this column. So I'm going to say what is there, chicken barley, and that's all what I want. Count chicken barley these that occurred in here. So I'll close the bracket and do enter. You can see I have 10 chicken. I have 310 chicken barleys occurring in here. So how do I do the sum of sales amount? I'll do sum ifs, sum range. What is the sum range? This is the sum range. This is the column that has the sales amount. This is the range I want to sum. So I'll select this. Then it's asking what is the criteria range. Where is the range that has my criteria? This is it. This is the range that has the criteria I want to search for. So I'll do comma again. And what is the criteria I'm looking for? I'm looking for all chicken barley occurrence. And again, I'll close the bracket. Voila, it does it for me. So that was how I did for barbecued chicken, beef suya. So this is how you use count ifs and sum ifs. And this is a practical example of where you need to use count ifs and sum ifs. And once again, these are what the formulas look like. And that is it for count ifs and sum ifs. We move on to round and ceiling. Here I have a table of equity division between 4 business partners. Tunde owns 29.559% of the company, and these are the percentage holdings of the other partners, and this is the total equity. And when you use a formula to calculate, for Tunde it's going to be his percentage times the total equity, which is his percentage times the total equity. And I did the same thing for Leke, Ahmed, and Obi. We all know that there is no 26,680 kobo. Kobo is in hundreds, so we can only have either 26 kobo or 27 kobo. You can have 26.680 kobo. So I will need to round these figures to the nearest kobo, which means I will just have to reduce the decimal point to just 2, and that's what you do, and that is what rounding gives you the ability to do. So we are going to use a round function. Round, then the number I want to round up. Then I'll do, so how many digits? I want to round it up to 2 decimal points. So it's done that, 2 decimal points. I can drag it down to do for others, or let's do for Lecky. Then we'll drag its own down to do for others. This is the number. I want to round it to 2 decimal points. Okay, 2 decimal points. As you can see, I have 64 kobo instead of 64.217 kobo. Then I'll drag this down to do for others. So this is a practical use of the round function. So let's go look at another instance. I have states, I have 7 states, and I have their population. Then I have a percentage of that population that are children. So I have this in percentage, but I need to figure out the actual population value for those children, which is multiplying the total by the percentage. So this is total population times this percentage that are children. That gives me the population that are children. But we all know that you can't have 0.30 people. You can't have 0.02 people. And the other thing about population is you can't round population. Like here, we had 26680. When we rounded it, this 6 ended up becoming a 1 that was added to this 6 here, making it 27. But in this case, where we had 64217, this 2 is not up to 5, so we didn't round it to 1 that will add up to the 4 to make it 5. We simply made it 0. So that's why this is 64000. But you can't do the same for population. Even if it's just 0.02 like we have here, you have to round it up. You have to make anything more than 0, you have to turn it to 1, because nobody is half or less than half. You have to make them all turn to 1. So in this case, we are going to have to use a function called ceiling. Ceiling. Once again, select the number you want, and then you specify to what significance figure, meaning to what. In this case, I want to round everything up to the nearest whole number. So, and not just round it up to the nearest whole number. Take whatever is more than 0, whatever is there, and make it a 1. Whether it's less than 450 or not, round it to 1. So in this case, I'm going to say 1 as my significance. So you're going to round everything to the nearest whole number and taking it up. So I'm going to close the brackets, and you can simply drag this down to do for everything. To make it look like this, all I need to do once again is I'll click on Format Painter. I'll select where I want it applied and release the key, the mouse key, and double click here to expand automatically to the width of the content. So now you can see it's rounded even 60 to 1, then rounded 10 to 1 also. Like in this case, where anything less than 5, like in this case 2 was rounded to 0, here it brings everything up to 1. So here is a practical example of where you might need to round up. So let's move on to concatenate. So here I have a table of first name and last name, but I want to generate the full name. So how do I do that? There's a function in Excel called concatenate, and there's a symbol you could use as a shortcut to create a formula to do that. So we're going to do both. So I'll regenerate this and say full name. I want to make a field called full name, and then I'll start with using hand. So I'm going to say I want to add what is here. I want to join into it. I need to put a space. So use hand to join, and to add a space, whatever text you want to add, you put in quotation mark. I want to put a space in quotation mark. Then I'll do hand again to add something else. This time around the last name. So I have first name and space and last name. If I press on enter, that's done that. That's giving me the first name and the last name as one cell entry. Then let's use concatenate. Concatenate. So here I can simply just select the text I want to join together. So I'll say I want to join Matthew. Then once again I'll do comma instead of hand this time around and put in the space in the double quotation mark and then the last name. Close the bracket. I've done again for Matthew. I should have done for Mark, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to delete. I'll do concatenate. I'll do Mark, then space and Mark's last name. Then I'll close the bracket. I've done for Mark. And to do for others, I can simply drag down and to be done. So this is how you add, how you concatenate, how you join two different cell entries and make them one. And this is a practical example, joining first name and last name to get a field called full name. Let's just give this a border. And that is it. Once again, I can come here and drag down what I have here. It's done. So next, let's go to left, right, and mid functions. I schooled at Federal University of Technology, Akure, so I'll use our matric number as an example. It has a very well thought out format. You have the department, then a slash, your year of matriculation, then a slash, and your candidate number. So I need to pick out all these different entities in each of the matric number. I want to pick out the department, I want to pick out the year of admission and the candidate number. To do that, I'm going to need these functions. They are text functions there, and left, right, and mid. So to pick out, I know that the department is the first three characters in a matric number. So to pick those first three characters in a particular cell entry, in this case the cell entry is a matric number, I am going to use the function called left. It's going to pick the leftmost entries. In this case, I'll tell you to pick the three leftmost entries, which will be CVE, and that will be the department civil engineering. It's the acronym for civil engineering. So I'm going to go type out the function left, and this is the cell with the text that I want to extract text for. So I want to extract the three leftmost characters. So 3, and I press enter. Voila. So I have the CV. So what if I want to pick out, let's go first to candidate number. That one is easier to explain, then I will explain how you pick out something in the middle. So candidate number, this time around I want to pick out, I know the candidate number is the last 4 characters in the matric number. So this time around I'm going to pick the 4 rightmost characters. So in this case I'll use right. Right, this is the text, and I need to pick 4 entries, 4 characters. That's how you pick the candidate number. Now I need to pick the year. To pick the year is right in the middle. It's not the leftmost, it's not the rightmost, it's in the middle of my text. To do that, I'm going to use a function called mid. So this is, I have to select the text again. This is the text. So it's asking for the start number. Where is the character I'm going to start from? I'm going to start from C is 1, B is 2, E is 3, forward slash is 4, 0 is 5. I'm going to start from the fifth character. So fifth character. And then how many characters will I pick? I know I only have 1, 2, 0, and 3. 2 characters represent the year of admission. So do 2, then enter. So that's how you pick right in the middle of the text. And rather than doing this all over, I'll drag down the formula, and I'll drag down this formula too. So this is how you use left, right, and mid, and this is a practical example of where you use them. Okay, so we'll move on to date functions: today, day, and month. In Excel, you can always show today's date by using a function called today. So it shows you today's date. Today's date, I'm recording this video on June 20th, 2014. So that's why I'm getting this. To be different from today's date, the day you're viewing this video. So how do I also show the day of today? Simple. I'll just do day of today, or whatever date, since today is already here, so I'll select what is here. You can see today, the day of today is 20. Then I can select month of today, which is month. Then I select the date, close the bracket. That is it. This month is June. And that's how you use today, day of day function, and month function. This is going to be very useful if you do a dashboard that you need to send out a summary report daily, and the dashboard is updated daily too. So you want to do a programmed dashboard where you have a summary that automatically fills. You want the date to fill itself, so you want it to always show a date that is the date you open the Excel file, the date, because you send this file daily. So you want, rather than typing today's date every day, you could use today, that function there, in where you want today's date to show, and you'll be sure that today's date will be there all the time. And just to end, I'm going to show you a very good function that I use a lot, but some people don't use it. It depends on you. It's called text. It helps you to convert numbers or dates into a specific format you want. I use it a lot on date. So if I want to show this day in this format, where it shows me, let's say I even want to show it in a format of day, 3 characters for the month, and then the year. So I'm going to do comma, and for format I will say I want to see as day dash 3 characters for the month dash the full year. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'll close it. You can see it's showing me as 2 characters for the day, 20, 3 characters for the month, June, 4 for the year. If I want to use another, I could, once again, I'll choose the dates. But this time around, I want to use, okay, I'll still go with 2 characters, but I'll use slash to divide, to separate the day and the month. And for month, I want to show the full month. So I'm going to use 4 characters. That's how I use to specify, display the whole month, type them out, use 4 M's. And then for year, I'll close the bracket. That is it. So what if I have another date? So let's change the date here. So maybe we don't want to use today. I want to use, let's manually type in date. Let's type in, I'm going to type in November 26, and that's my birthday. 2014. You can see 3 characters for the month, but here it's typing out the full month, even though I typed for him. So that's how you indicate for the full this spelling of the month fully typed out. If I wanted it to be dash instead of forward slash. Yeah. So we're done with today, day, and month. So let's move on to upper, lower, and proper. These are functions. A lot of time people ask, is there no way to change the case of a text in Excel, just like you can do in Word, where you select the text and you see a button up here that will change the case for you from all lower to all upper, or all lower to all upper to all lower. You can in Excel, but it's not, you have to use a formula. There is no button to click to do that for you. And that is what we're going to do. This is a text. I could type another one here. So let's say typing another text. My name is Michael. I'm going to type this in all small letters. This is going to show you, make the effect more pronounced. Okay, so how do I make this all upper? There's a function called upper. So upper, then I select the text, I close the brackets, and voila, everything is in upper. I'm going to do for lower too. I want to make it all lower. So I'm going to go for the function lower. I'll select the same text, I'll close the bracket, enter. See, everything is lower. Then M is lower, I is lower. So there's a last one. It's called proper. I'm going to show you what it does. You will notice, especially pay attention to how it will show my name. So I'm going to select the text and then click on enter. You can see it turns the first letter of each word into a capital letter. So it's I, capital A, capital T, especially my name, M, capital O, capital. So if you have a list, you have a list of names, full names. But maybe you're like me, you don't like seeing people mixing up small letter and capital letter and typing names all in small letters, and you want to print this out and you want it to be well formatted. So instead of you retyping the names, simply use proper to, let's say, Mike Olaf. Okay. So instead of me retyping this, I'm going to use the function proper to get the name typed right. So I'll drag this. So here is a very practical use of proper. So let's move on. The next is round between, and indirect. I want to generate a sample data, sample sales data. I need it to show, maybe just to do a demonstration. So I want to generate for as much fields as I can. I don't want to keep typing over and over again. So I want to, as I drag down, I want it to keep generating values for me. You can see it keeps generating different names, different values, different values. So how do I do that? You do that using round between, and indirect. So let's start from scratch. I'm going to do this all over. So let's create the salesman, sales mid. You must have been noticing Whenever I press enter, these things are changing. That's one of the features of using round between. They change every time you press enter. So every time go into a cell, you put in a data, you press enter, round and round between recalculates. So don't worry. Margin, I'll make them okay. So I have 7 names here. These are all the salesmen, but I want them to be randomly picked and filled into these cells, and then I want to give them random sales figures and then random profit margin. So to pick a random name among all these, I'm going to, okay, let me start from profit margin. Let's move from the easy to explain to the little bit complex to explain. So to do a profit margin, I'm going to use a function called rand. Rand generates a random number between 0 and 1. So I'm simply going to close the brackets and do enter. You can see it gives me a random number between 0 and 1. I will need this to show in percentage. So I'll come here and click show as percentage. So that is it. If I drag this down, I'm going to have different values. That's if cool thing about random. I can drag down to even the last row in Excel. I can create 1 million random numbers. So let's do for sales made. I want the sales made to be between 400,000 and 900,000. So I want to pick random numbers between 400,000 and 900,000. I'm going to need a function called rand between. Then I'll say I want between 400,000 and 900,000. I can drag that down also. And to give it this format here, I'll click on format paint. Then I'll select all these entries and release the mouse, and it does that. Then I can also give everything a border. So we've done random sales value and a random profit margin. Let's make this bold. Next is let's keep randomly picking the salesman. So this is where I will need to use another function called indirect. And we need to use indirect to give, like, instead of saying choose locking each cell to a particular salesman, like if I want to put Mark David here, I would have to click equal to the Mark David. If I click here, you will notice that I've done equals to F1 because that's the address for Mark David. I don't want to do that. I want to randomly pick among all these. I don't want to lock to a particular cell. So I'm going to use indirect. So I'll say indirect I can type in cell F1 as if I want to do for Mark David. So indirect F1. So I've selected to go pick whatever is in Mark David F1. The cool thing about this is instead of me picking F1, like today is in F2, Akim is in F3, I can tell the formula to randomly pick. So I'll remove the 1 and say and do a random picking and between 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 between all these entries, so 1 and 7, and then I'll close the brackets. So now I'm randomly picking between If I drag this down, it's going to randomly pick between all these sales people. So that's how you do that with Excel. You might say, why couldn't I have just, rather than, remember, I could lock a cell value, easily type equals F1. Why couldn't I have just done instead of locking this to F1 or using indirect? Why couldn't I have just removed the one and do and rand between 1,7 and do enter? Now you see the reason I can't do that, because Excel is not going to recognize this as a valid cell entry. The only way I can force Excel to see this as a cell location is by using indirect, by adding indirect, closing it, and then remember I need to put this in quotation mark. So you might ask, why don't I remove the indirect and leave the quotation mark and rand between? You see what will happen. Can you see? It's giving me, it's seeing F as like I'm doing concatenation. So it's not seeing it as a reference to a cell, right? It's seeing it as a text on its own. So joining F and a random number between 1 and 6. So the only way to do this is by using indirect. There is no other way. So this is how you use indirect. I can drag this down, it keeps doing it, and generate as many random entries as I want. Let's go down to as far down on 646. So it's very handy I use it a lot during my Excel trainings when I need to generate random values and do some calculations. So finally, how do you audit a formula? How do you check for errors in the formula? Let's go see one of our previous sheet calculations as an example. But first of all, there is a part of your Excel menu under the formula menu. Then there's this part called formula audit. This is where you would use. I have it in this picture, and this is the equivalent here. So you use this for checking formula errors and auditing formulas. So let's go check one of our previous sheet calculations. Okay, so let's start with this. You want to see all the functions, all the cells. You want to see all the cells that are linked to another cell entry in your Excel file. You can come say you want to see dependents. So you can see that this cell is actually a source, is feeding this, feeding this, feeding this. That is true, right? This is feeding in our formula here. A1 is this, and also if you do here, it's also taking A1. So it's a formula that is being fed with data from here. So it's very useful in making you see how formulas are made in a sheet, and you could, when you're doing troubleshooting, finding what has gone wrong. So that is one way. Let's remove that. The other way is if you want to see precedence, which is more like the other way around again. You want to see what was feeding this, but you could click on precedence. They are basically the same. It shows you what was feeding the formula you clicked on. So let's remove that. So let's see an example where I'll be able to explain these other parts of the formula auditing toolbox. Okay, so let's say I want to see how the formula I have here is being evaluated. I want to see the step taken in calculating this formula. This is very useful if you're doing complex formulas and you want to see that the formulas were entered or are being calculated the way you intended them to be calculated. So you click on evaluate formula. So now you can step in the formula. You can see how Excel does the calculation of those formula of the formula. Looking at this formula, you'll see a part underlined. This part, it shows that this is what Excel is going to calculate first. So if you click on it, evaluate, you see it has done that first. So it has turned rand between to 4. That's pick the random value 4. And then it's now going to join this with this as a work of that hand. It's going to calculate this next. So you can see. So you've gotten an indirect for F4, which means you're going to pick what is in cell F4, F1, F2, F3, F4. By the time I'm done with this evaluation, I should see Ahmed Tafa in here. So let's click that. How did F4 become Inam Isham? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you get the idea. So this is how it's being calculated. I think it doesn't work well with rand between because it can't evaluate, will not change the value here. But for other functions, you'll be able to see exactly what it's here if you follow the procedure it took. Okay, so I'm going to close that. Let's use it on another example. Let's go to one of the other functions we worked on. Let's go to concatenate. Okay, so let's do evaluate formula. So you can see A2 is being underlined. It's going to do for A2 first. See, Matthew. Next is going to add Matthew and a space. So we have Matthew and a space. Next is going to add B2. Silas. So he's going to do Matthew and Silas. And that's how you get Matthew Silas here. So you could restart, you could close, and that is all for this video. The next video is on Excel reports and presentation. Don't forget to subscribe to our blog. Thank you.